welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Connie.
And today we are diving back into Twilight. For you guys, it will have just been a week. For us, it's been quite a few weeks. So we'll be diving into chapter 15 today, which is the Cullen. Oh, and 16.
15 and 16.
Yep, I forgot we're throwing both of those together because they just fit together.
They do. But before we get into that, just a reminder, you can find us at TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify. It's been a little while since we've done this. The handle for all four is at Chaos Chronicles Podcast. That's Chronicles with an S. We would very much like, follow, and subscribe.
We would very much like.
Appreciate a like, follow, and subscribe. This is going well.
All right. Well, on that note, Connie, would you like to tell us about chapter 14 before we get too far?
Yes. So this is the brief version of chapter 14. Mm-hmm. Basically, Edward and Bella are continuing on from their open and honesty that they had in chapter 13, where Edward starts talking more about what it is to be a vampire, and he's showing, his super speed and strength, and he sparkles in the sun, shine bright like a diamond, and just showing that they're very different. So now Bella is starting to understand, okay, he's very different, but shoot, I love him. And Edward spends the night with Bella, not in that way, you nasty. They are literally just sleeping. Well, he's not sleeping. He's holding her and staring at her as she sleeps in his arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is supposedly a PG book, even though...
Yeah, it feels like the teaser to get you into the smut books.
It does. There have been several times where I've texted you or called you and felt like, Connie, what am I about to read?
I know, I'll get a paragraph picture and I'm like... I got nothing.
Because it does. It literally, I don't care if you've never read it before in your life or if you've read a lot of smut. You read that as an adult and you're like,
it's a little questionable.
It's very questionable.
But, Stephanie Meyer's Mormon, although she says her Mormonism did not influence the books, it's very, very hard for it not to. And I have found that some of the most religious of folks, when they write their stories, there's a lot of sexual tension, whether it's intentional or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unpack that as you will. We do not have the expertise nor the time to do that.
No, no thanks.
Exactly.
So we will start with chapter 15 here, which is the Cullens. So Bella wakes the next morning and abruptly sits up when she remembers who was in her room last night. Edward is sitting in the rocking chair in the corner and tells her, quote, "Your hair looks like a haystack, but I like it." Okay, Edward. Bella is ecstatic that he stayed the night, so much so that she threw herself across the room and onto his lap. Her actions caught up to her and she froze. She was shocked by her, quote, "uncontrolled enthusiasm," end quote. She looked up at him, scared, as she had crossed a line.
2 words. Morning breath. Just saying.
Connie, their breaths stun each other.
You tell me that's not kinky, okay?
It's a disgusting
one. I'm judging.
I am judging for that one. Edward just laughed and responded, "Of course he stayed." He seemed pleased by her reaction and even rubbed her back with his hands.
What part of her back, buddy?
Not specified. Quote, "I laid my head cautiously against his shoulder, breathing in the smell of his skin," end quote. Bella jumps up suddenly, remembering Charlie. Edward tells her not to worry. Charlie had left an hour ago after he reattached the battery cables on Bella's truck. Because Charlie thought that she was gonna
I remember that.
She was gonna dip out.
Yep.
Edward is disappointed that is all it would take to stop Bella if she was determined to leave. I mean, would it have stopped her though?
Well, as other readers know, we will see in other books just how far Bella will go to get to Edward. So the answer is no. That would not have stopped her. Slowed her down, but not stopped her.
Yeah. So Edward points out that Bella usually isn't this confused in the morning. Bella tells him she needs another human minute, and Edward says he'll wait. Bella goes to the bathroom and gets ready for the day. She comes back, and Edward reaches out to join him on the rocking chair. He holds her, and Bella notices that his clothes are different and his hair is more put together. Edward assures her that it wasn't for long, and she was in a deep, deep sleep, so he didn't miss anything. The talking was earlier in the night. Hey, Connie, what do you have next to you?
Imagine that there's a stick and this is a flag.
Yeah.
We will eventually have red flags.
Yep.
Right now we have a red towel.
The flags were forgotten today, but they are coming.
They're coming. Honestly, I think I was just so stunned by that I forgot I had the red flag.
like Bella's stunned by his breath and skin.
Okay. So now my brain being what it is. The first pee of the morning, it's loud. It doesn't smell great. That's just human nature. Edward has great hearing and smell. Unless she's just, well, this is the era of the manic pixie, so maybe she just doesn't pee. She's just not like other girls that way. For those who can't see or didn't pick it up in my voice, heavy sarcasm.
Heavy.
This, again, just weird. But I'm also, again, I'm a weird person about let me have my space when I get ready. That's a thing.
I don't really care, but
No, with you, I don't care. With my husband, I don't care. But like,
with other
people,
yeah. Give me a minute, go away. Yeah. No, I feel that. So Bella had said that she loved him, and Bella reminds him that she has already told him. Oh, last night. So during the night, Bella had said that she loved him, and Bella reminds him that she has already told him that, so he knew it, and then whispers that she loves him. Edward answers and says, quote, "You are my life now," end quote.
Okay, I know that's sweet, but also say I love you back.
Unless you don't mean it. Don't do that.
But we know he means it.
Exactly.
And like, I get it. He's like, no, it's not enough. I need to say you are my life now. Okay, but like, you still need that clear communication that it's a love and not a stalker obsession thing.
Yeah. Like, you can say, I love you too. You are my life now.
Perfect.
Yeah. Great.
Perfect.
Cool.
Edward.
If you're not watching, the red flag may make its appearance several times.
Hey, we needed them in the first half of the book, but
we did. I know it's going to be more far and few between, but I've been told that the next book we're gonna need the actual red flags. So
those who know, you'll know too.
I don't know yet.
We'll get there.
They rocked for a while longer together in silence, and Edward finally says it's breakfast time.
Oh.
Bella clutches her neck and stares at him, eyes wide, but then laughs and says she's just kidding.
Okay, that I appreciate.
I do too. I like that.
Okay, now she's acting like an actual teenage girl.
Yeah. Edward says that wasn't funny, and then says he will rephrase and say breakfast time for the human. Edward throws her over his shoulder and carried her downstairs and sits her in a chair. Is she your doll?
Oh, like, actually, like, hello, sack of potatoes. If so, that just means he has easy access to put a hand on her butt or to look at her butt.
I guess.
You could have bridal carried. You could have done anything else.
Not the fireman carry.
Oh, yeah. I guess
it is the fireman carry.
I just know it as the sack of potatoes.
I mean, both work.
Both work.
Yeah.
That is fun as a child. when your parents pick you up to do the sack potatoes or the fireman carry.
Yeah, but also that Connie...
From Edward is weird. See, my family had this thing where maybe we're weird with children, but like you will hold kids upside down, you'll throw them over your shoulder, and then you'll toss them.
That's not what the look was for. In previous chapters, we keep saying like Edward keeps calling people her age a child.
Oh, he is infantilizing.
That's what the look was for.
Got it. We're on the same page.
Bella asks what's for breakfast. Edward isn't sure and asks what she wants. Bella just says that's okay. She fends for herself pretty well. Watch her hunt.
I remember all this, yeah.
So she eats cereal and milk and asks if Edward wants anything. Edward rolls his eyes and says, just eat, Bella. Bella asks what's on the agenda for the day, and Edward asks if she would come meet his family. Bella is afraid, but not of them. She's afraid they won't like her and is worried that they'll be surprised he's bringing someone like her, a human, over. Edward says they know everything already. They were actually taking bets yesterday on whether or not he would end up bringing her back. They don't keep secrets in the family. It's not really feasible anyway, since Edward can read minds and Alice can see the future. Bella adds to not forget about Jasper. He makes you feel all warm and fuzzy about spilling your guts. Edward is happy that Bella is paying attention. Edward continues to say that she should really introduce him to her father too, as her boyfriend. Bella asks why, and Edward innocently says, isn't that customary? Is anything innocent about this guy? Okay. But
maybe later.
Bella says she doesn't know, but it's not necessary. He doesn't have to pretend for her. Edward smiles, saying he isn't pretending, and then when Bella doesn't say anything, he demands to know if she's going to tell Charlie that he is her boyfriend. Bella asks, is that what he is? Edward admits that it's a loose interpretation of boy. Red flag.
You know what that was making me think of? That feels like something that Jeremy Sankey would say.
Gosh.
With the Jeremy Sankey and Jasmine Richardson story.
Yeah, which the first 2 of the 4 parts will have come out by now.
Good. Check it out. It's messed up.
Be ready to... I don't even know how to finish that sentence.
There's trigger warnings for a reason.
Yeah. Listen to those before you actually dive into those. Anyways, Bella says she was under the impression that he was something more than a boy. Edward reaches across the table to lift her chin with a cold but gentle finger and says that he doesn't think they need to give him all the details, but he will need some explanation as to why Edward is here so much, and, quote, I don't want Sheriff Swan getting a restraining order put on me. That's fair.
That's valid. Also, Stephanie, sweetie, honey, baby, come here. What's with all the face touching?
I find this very... Book, okay. Thinking about real life, ugh.
Yeah, maybe that is a book thing that's okay, but I love my husband, obviously. The times he's touched my face, in a loving way, very limited. To poke my face, to bug me, very often. But that's our relationship.
It's odd. I mean, I don't know. That's a lot to unpack, though. But
the face touching?
Yeah. I don't know if... Well, that in context, that's a book talk thing, and those of you that know. But there's like this... this typical line for spicy smut books where the guy leans against the threshold of the door and
Yep.
then like lifts the
Mhm.
girl's chin up. And, yeah, so there is that.
Over a bowl of cereal. I don't
Yeah.
remember that being part of any of the smut book talks, but
Also across the table. Like, so he's reaching across the table and doing that as she's eating. What are you trying to accomplish there?
no, I think I've traced it back. So we talked about the
Oh,
English, the infantilizing, the babying. Let's just go with
yeah.
that one. The babying that Edward does to Bella, and I think that's why part of the face touching is bugging me, because to me,
Oh.
that's something that parents do for children. Yeah, the pinch the cheeks, or like, hey, are you okay? Let me check you. Let me wipe something off your face. Face touching very much feels like
Yeah.
that. Kissing on the
Yeah.
cheek, kissing on the forehead, weirdly enough to me, that's completely normal, but I'm also Italian. That's a standard greeting.
Yeah.
But like just the touching is the
Touching of the face that often is weird.
often. There we go.
Yeah. It's I mean, in one chapter it happens like 10 times. Maybe not, but like
Yeah, but maybe this is like the whole, is this a like super religious person thing where like when you're first dating, like that's your out, like touch each other's face?
no, it's not.
Okay, I got nothing then.
It's not unless it's a I mean
I don't know. Leave your comments in the comments. Leave your comments.
yeah.
Leave your opinions in the comments.
Yes, we would love to know what you guys think.
Yeah, we can't be the only ones finding this weird.
Yeah, it's too often. It's too often.
Mhm.
So Bella is anxious. Will he actually really be here? Edward says for as long as she wants him to be. Bella says she always wants him, forever. Bella asks if that makes him sad. Edward doesn't answer, but finally breaks the silence and asks if she is finished. Bella goes upstairs to get ready while Edward waits for her downstairs. She dresses in a long khaki colored skirt and a dark blue blouse and puts her hair up in a ponytail. She comes downstairs saying she's decent, but Edward objects because she is too tempting.
Ain't nobody, and I mean nobody, ever said, that long khaki skirt, too tempting. It does sound like a very 2000s outfit.
It does. It does.
Like I can totally see it because it's going to be sitting low. You're going to have a belt. It's probably one of those puff sleeve blue blouses where it's got the collar and then the little like ruching over the chest because God forbid you have any curve there, and then the buttons.
Yeah.
So actually I'm kind of envisioning Zoe Deschanel's character in is it New Girl, that series? I've only seen clips of it.
I've never actually seen it.
That's the vibe I'm getting.
Oh,
Quirky.
but yeah. I think I can Jesse? Is that the name? I don't know. Anyways, Bella says that she can change, but Edward shakes his head. He presses his lips to her forehead, and the room begins to spin. He kisses her, and Bella collapses.
Sorry.
Edward catches her, and Bella accused him of making her faint. Edward groans. What is he going to do with her? Yesterday, she jumps all over him when they kissed, and today she faints. Bella...
Sorry.
No, you're good.
It is pretty funny.
It's pretty, yeah. Bella says he's too good, and that's the issue. She isn't sick or anything. She believes she forgot to breathe. Edward doesn't want to bring her to meet the family like this, but Bella insists because she is so nervous about it and would just like to go. Edward reiterates that she is worried, but not to meet a house full of vampires, but because she believes that they won't approve of her. Bella is shocked he casually used the word vampires in the conversation, but then says yes. Edward shakes his head, saying she is incredible, and then they drive over, mostly in silence. They make it to the Cullens' house, more like estate. Yeah,
Is nice. It's really
it's
nice.
really nice. Edward guides her to the front door and opens the door for her. Edward's parents were at the door waiting to greet them. Edward introduces them to Bella. They both tell her that it's nice to meet her. Bella can't help but think that it was just like meeting Snow White. Esme.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The parents are Carlisle, who we met in earlier chapters, Dr. Carlisle,
Yes.
and then his wife, Esme.
Yes.
And those two are so sweet, by the way. You will love them.
I can't say anything yet.
You read ahead. You know.
I have read ahead, but we're trying to stay in this. All right, so Bella thought that she had just met Snow White. Alice is next to appear. She says hi and excitedly bounces to Bella, kissing her cheek. Everyone is shocked, but Bella is pleased to see that someone was approving of her. She notices that Edward stiffened next to the door and his expression was unreadable. Alice then makes the comment that she does smell nice she hadn't noticed before. Edward was too stunned to speak, and then Jasper appeared. He said hello, but kept his distance. Bella compliments their home, and Esme thanks her and says that they are so glad she came. Bella realized that Esme spoke with such feeling that she thought that Bella was brave to come. Rosalie and Emmett were nowhere to be seen, but Bella remembered that not all of them liked her. Bella eyes the piano that is on the platform by their door. Esme notices and asks Bella if she plays. She says no and asks if she does. Esme laughs and says no. Had Edward not told her he was musical? Esme encourages Edward to play for her. After a few joking comments, Edward moves to the piano and begins to play. He played a song that he wrote that apparently was Esme's favorite. He then plays another that Bella inspired. This one is much softer. Edward's family had left, probably giving them some space, and Edward says that they like her, especially Esme.
You know, it's very, very sweet. I'm also just remembering that was totally the era of every other person played piano. No judgment. We both played piano.
Yes.
And it was also the era of everyone just composed your own songs. And
I did not.
really?
I'm not creative for that. I'm not creative enough for that, Connie.
You are. I think you are.
The closest to that I ever got was I am not a memorizer of music. To this day, I've only memorized 2 songs. That is it. But so I was for a while learning songs by ear, but I would write them down. That is as far as I went.
Hey, that's still a skill to be able to figure out the note and write it down. That one I struggle with, but I'm better at memorizing the music because my teacher made us memorize at least one piece to perform per year for the recitals.
Yeah, I was supposed to memorize stuff, and I couldn't do it for whatever reason. I couldn't.
I was forced.
No, they tried to force me. I'm saying I couldn't. I was supposed to do it by memory, and I just went up with my music anyways. And I was like, I'm not going to forget. It was probably just anxiety being like, I'm going to forget halfway through.
That happened to me mid one recital.
Mm-hmm.
It was not fun, but the way that my teacher did it, and honestly, this was such a good approach. Side note, we'll be back to Twilight in a second. No, from our sponsors, Chaos. The way my teacher made me do it was she broke the songs down into parts A, B, and C, or A, B, C, D, depending on the length. And so A being your intro, and then of course D being your outro, your ending. So she would have you memorize absolute heck out of A and D.
Just in case something happens in the middle, you can always.
So then when I was performing this song, and it was a trickier song, and I was in the middle of part B. I was like 6 measures into part B, almost at part C. and I completely forgot.
Blank. Yeah.
And like I knew I was coming up because thankfully it was an arpeggio part. So I'm like, next part, next. I don't know the next part. Like it was just gone. And so I immediately jumped to part D. So instead of a 2-minute song, it was about a 45-second song. I thought I was going to get in so much trouble. But my teacher's like, no, you did so good. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You forgot and you went to the end. And I'm like, I'm not in trouble? She goes, oh, no, we're going to talk. But like, you did the right thing. And I'm like, okay.
I could not do it. There was one girl that always had like at least 3 songs memorized for her recitals, and I just could not be me.
It's nerve-wracking.
No.
And now, do I remember any of those? No. There's one song that if you put me in front of a piano and you gave me enough time, I can get you the opening to, and it's the Trans-Siberian Orchestra's Nut Rocker song.
Heck yeah.
It is such a fun song, but it will cramp the ever-living hell out of your hand because you are doing octave jumps repeatedly with your left hand. At fortissimo, of course.
I could not do that right now. That sounds painful.
It was painful even with it memorized because, of course, it's staccato, and then you get into the triplets on it, and it was just like, oh, this hurts.
Ow.
But
that's just pain.
It was so much fun to play. I can hear it in my head right now. I just can't quite remember all the notes.
Yeah. No.
Oh, so much fun. Anyway.
Fun. Anyways.
Sorry.
Back to Twilight.
It's not Chaos Chronicles without some on-screen chaos.
Exactly. So we left off not Esme especially liked her. Bella sighs and says they do, but Rosalie and Emmett. Edward tells her not to worry about Rosalie. She will come around. And as for Emmett, he thinks Edward is a lunatic, but he doesn't have a problem with Bella. He is more so just trying to reason with Rosalie. Rosalie struggles the most with what they are, and it's hard to have someone on the outside know the truth. She is a little jealous of Bella because she wishes that she was human too. Edward then tells Bella that Emmett not being here is his fault. He is the most recent in their way of life, so Edward told him to keep his distance. Esme and Carlisle are happy to see Edward happy. Esme wouldn't have cared who she was at all. She had been worried about Edward, afraid that there was something missing from his essential makeup, that he was too young when Carlisle had changed him. Quote, she is ecstatic. Every time I touch you, she just about chokes with satisfaction. End quote.
Aww.
Which is so sweet.
It's so sweet. I love that when you have the mom that's just like so happy for their kids, especially if it's not the bio mom. Mm-hmm. I'm like that choosing to be the mom, choosing to have that love. That's so sweet.
Yes.
Especially now that we're adults, I see that and I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Didn't get that on the first read as I was a kid.
No, I can imagine not. Bella asks about what Carlisle had said to Edward earlier. Edward was surprised that she noticed and tells her that he will be a little overbearingly protective of her for the next few days or weeks because Alice sees some visitors coming soon. They're like them, but they have different hunting habits, and Edward will not let her out of sight until they're gone. Bella shivered. Edward responds, quote, finally a rational response. I was beginning to think that you had no sense of self-preservation at all.
Oh my god. That's valid on Edward's part.
It
I'm
is.
with Eddie Boy here, okay?
For this one time. One time. And again, we're taking Edward chapter by chapter. We're ignoring all the other red flags up to this moment.
Yeah, don't do that in real life.
No.
With the book character, that's fine.
Yes. Bella looks around the house. This is not at all what she had pictured. Quote, no coffins, no piled skulls in the corner. I don't even think we have cobwebs. What a disappointment this must be for you, Edward teases.
Oh, I love it.
Gosh. So the house is so light and open because it's the one place that they don't have to hide. Edward was still playing through this whole conversation. I wish.
No kidding.
I wish.
Even on my best memorized piece, having a conversation, no gracias.
No, I would stop immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a conversation in which I'm actually supposed to be paying attention and engaging with the other person.
Not gonna happen.
No. Like, there's plenty of times where you have to do a quick response.
Oh,
but
yeah, but that's not
a conversation.
No. So, yeah.
Eddie Boy's just perfect.
Okay. Take away all the red flags, maybe.
In this one instant, he's just perfection.
So Bella has tears in her eyes and says, "Thank you for playing." She began to dab where her tears spilled. Oh, and then I put in bold and caps here, cringe alert coming. Quote,
That wasn't the cringe?
No, I got a quote for you, Connie. Quote, "He touched the corner of my eye, tapping the one that I missed. He lifted his fingers, examining the drop of moisture broodingly. Then, so quickly I couldn't be positive that he really did, he put his finger to his mouth to taste it." End quote.
Ow. No.
You okay?
No. What? Okay.
Shall we just continue and not acknowledge?
That's
Okay, continuing.
That is just what the Stephanie.
Where did this even dawn on you to do?
Never have I ever seen a tear and been like, I want that in my mouth.
No.
The only times I've ever said I want something in my mouth, it's about food. It's about food. Bella is technically food for Edward.
Yep. So Edward then begins to give her a tour of the house.
Oh, we're just gonna breeze past that one, okay?
Yep, we're gonna breeze past it.
How the hell?
There is a wooden cross at the end of the wall. Edward tells her it's okay if she wants to laugh. After all, it's ironic. Bella doesn't touch it, but knows that it has to be very old. It is. It belonged to Carlisle's father. He carved it and came from the early 1630-ish. Bella asked how old Carlisle is, and Edward said that he just celebrated his 362nd birthday. He was born in London in the 1640s. He was the only son of a pastor, and his mother died giving birth to him. His father was an intolerant man and led hunts for witches, werewolves, and vampires. They burned a lot of innocent people because the real creatures were too hard to catch. When his father grew old, he put Carlisle in charge of his raids. He was a disappointment at first because he didn't accuse as quickly. He was actually more persistent and smarter than his father, and he discovered a coven of true vampires. People gathered their pitchforks and torches and waited where Carlisle saw a monster come out onto the street. Eventually, one came out. He had been very old and weak with hunger. Carlisle was attacked and 2 other men were killed. The vampire took a third away with him, and Carlisle was left bleeding in the streets. Carlisle knew what his father would do. The bodies would be burned, and anything infected by the monster had to be destroyed. Carlisle crawled away from the alley while the mob followed the vampire and his victims. He was in a cellar and had buried himself in rotting potatoes for 3 days and was undiscovered. Carlisle then realized what he had become. Edward asks how Bella is feeling. She hesitates, saying she's fine and has a few questions. Edward smiles, grabs her hand, and then says, "Come on, I'll show you." And that's the end of chapter 15, which is why we're going into chapter 16.
Yeah, we're going to go right away, which, by the way, Carlisle's story would have been so interesting.
Yes.
I would have loved to hear that story.
Yes. His was, and which is why I got done reading chapter 15. I'm like, nope, we're going to go right into 16 to take notes because I was excited to hear more about Carlisle.
And we're going to put it here for you. So congrats, 2 parts.
Yeah, you get 2 chapters this week. So, chapter 16 is titled Carlisle. Edward leads Bella to Carlisle's office, and Carlisle invites them to come in. Edward opens the door, and Carlisle asks what he can do for them. Edward had brought her in there to show Bella some of their history, or more so, his history. Bella apologizes for disturbing him, but Carlisle says not at all and asks where Edward planned on starting, and Edward says he plans on starting at the Wagoneer. I'm just assuming that's how it's pronounced.
No idea.
Mm. The wall, instead of being a bookshelf, was full of framed pictures of all different sizes and colors. The first picture Edward points out is London in the 1650s and Carlisle's youth. Edward asks if Carlisle will tell the story. He would, but he has to get going to the hospital since another doctor had called in sick. Carlisle leaves, and Bella stares at the picture for a while and finally asks what happened after Carlisle realized what he had become. Carlisle had rebelled against it. He tried to destroy himself, but it wasn't easily done. He had jumped from great heights, tried to drown himself in the ocean. He was young to the new life and was strong. He was able to resist feeding while he was still so new. The instinct to feed is much more powerful then, but he was so repelled by himself that he had the strength to try to kill himself with starvation. There are very few ways that they can be killed, and starvation is not one of them. So he just became very hungry and very weak. He moved as far away from humans as possible because he realized that his willpower was beginning to weaken too. He had wandered off for months at nighttime, looking for the loneliest places and loathing himself. One night he heard a deer go by where he was hiding. He was so wild with thirst that he attacked it without thinking. His strength returned, and he realized that there was an alternative to being the monster he feared and started to find himself again. He then started to make better use of his time and now had unlimited time. He was always eager to learn, so he studied by night and planned by day. He swam to France through the Channel. The story gets interrupted by Bella being amazed that he swam to France. Swimming was easy for them, everything to be so much easier. Edward laughs, saying that's because technically they don't need to breathe.
Yep. I remember that part.
Breathing is not necessary, it's just a habit. They can probably go indefinitely without breathing, but it becomes a little uncomfortable without the sense of smell. Edward freezes, and after Bella prompts him, he tells her that he keeps waiting for him to tell her something, and then she'll just run away from him screaming. But getting back to Carlisle's story, Edward's eyes move to another picture, the most colorful one on the wall and the largest. It was of figures in swirling robes gathering around long pillars off marbled balconies. So Carlisle swam to France and continued on through Europe to the universities there. He studied music, science, and then found his calling and penance in medicine, saving human lives. Edward cannot describe the struggle Carlisle went through. It took two centuries of such effort to be perfect with his self-control, and now he is immune to human blood. He is able to do the work he loves without being in agony, and he finds a great deal of peace at hospitals. When he was studying in Italy, he discovered others there, and they were more civilized and educated than those in the London sewers. Edward points out a group of figures from the painting, and then Bella recognizes the golden-haired man. This picture was by a friend of Carlisle's, and he often painted him and the group of men, Argo, Marcus, and Callus, as gods. The group of men are still there. Carlisle only stayed with them for a few decades. He admired their civility, but they were persistent in trying to cure aversion to his natural food source. Carlisle dreamt of finding others like him. He was very lonely. He hadn't found anyone for a long time. Eventually, monsters became more of fairy tales, and he discovered that he could interact with humans like he was one of them. He began to practice medicine, but was still craving companionship. When the influenza epidemic hit, he was working the night shift in Chicago. He had been thinking about acting on his desire for several years since he couldn't find a companion. He could create one. He wasn't sure on how his transformation occurred, so he was hesitant to try. He also didn't want to steal anyone's life the way that his was. While in this frame of mind, Carlisle found Edward. There was no hope for Edward. He was in a ward dying. He had already aided Edward's parents and knew that Edward was alone. Aided. What did I say?
He had already treated the parents.
Yeah, I don't know what came out of my mouth.
Yeah, which I don't remember if it was in that one or if it was in the
other
Midnight
version,
Sun.
yeah.
But I believe Carlisle, while Edward's mother, bio mother, had been dying, she had said, please save my son, do whatever you can to save my son.
It wasn't in this book.
Okay, it must have been in that one. And so, both parents die, and then here's Edward dying. So Carlisle's like, well, maybe I can save him.
Yeah, so he decided to give it a try. Edward trailed off and eventually said, "And so now we have come full circle." Bella asks if he has always stayed with Carlisle, and Edward almost always has. He continues to say that he had a typical rebellious adolescence about 10 years after he was turned. Edward wasn't sure about Carlisle's life of abstinence, and so he went off on his own. Bella was intrigued, and Edward is in shock that it doesn't repulse her. Bella says it sounds reasonable, and Edward continues. From the time of his new birth, he had the advantage of knowing what everyone else around him was thinking, both humans and non-humans, and this is why it took him 10 years. He understood exactly why he lived the way that he did. He understood exactly why Carlisle had lived the way he did. He returned after a few years and recommitted to Carlisle's vision. Edward had thought that he would be exempt from the depression that came with a conscience. He knew the thoughts of his prey. He was able to pass over innocent people and pursue those with only evil. But time continued, and he began to see himself as a monster. He couldn't escape what he had done, how much human life he had taken, even if it was justified. Then he went back to Carlisle and Esme. They welcomed him back. Edward brings Bella to his room. The whole back wall is glass, and he had a view of the winding Soul Duck River that was across from the forests of the Olympic mountain range. Another wall was covered in CDs and was better stocked than a music store. Edward turned the stereo on to soft jazz. His collection was organized by year, then his preference within each section. Edward confesses that he was prepared to feel relieved after telling her everything, but he feels happy. Bella smiles back and says that she is glad. Edward's smile fades, and Bella assumes that he is waiting for her to leave running and screaming. He is. Quote, "I hate to burst your bubble, but you're really not as scary as you think you are. I don't find you scary at all." End quote. Edward raised his eyebrows in disbelief, then, quote, flashed a wide, wicked smile. "You really shouldn't have said that," he growled, a low sound in the back of his throat. His lips curled back over his perfect teeth. His body shifted suddenly. Half crouched, tense like a lion about to pounce. End quote.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You know, if I see a guy doing that towards me, if I see my husband doing that towards me, I'm gonna be like, dude, don't jump on me, because most of the time I'm sitting with my knees up and you're not gonna enjoy that.
Wow, I just got a strange sense of deja vu. I think we've had this conversation before.
I think we have. Not regards to Edward. Where did that come from?
I have no idea. But
who knows? But yeah, I do remember this part in the book. And also, this does track, because I can totally see it. You're with a 17-year-old boy. We're working with it.
Whatever.
And you're like, oh, you're not playing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I'm going to prove to you he's basically treating her like a prey right now.
Oh, yeah. It's in a total joking way. But I'm like, girl, you should have seen this coming.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this coming when I read this for the first time. I'm like, you did not.
I know. Yeah.
You're just asking. And I can't judge either, because if my husband looked at me, and he's done this, where he's like, I love you, you're not scary. And I'm like, I'm not scary. Really? Come here. Come here. Come here. He's like, I don't want to. I'm like, no, just come here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can be scary if we want. No.
I just do the pressure points, because he does the pressure points to me. He's really freaking good at that. Him and his mom. Oh my God. They have the fingers for it, where if they ever do the thing where they grab above your knee. Oh my God, they're both so good at it, and they've both done that to me, because Kelly's like, no, so what Johnny does is this, and without warning me, she did it, and I damn near kicked myself out of the bar stool that I was in.
Nope. I grew up with all brothers, and all of them did that, and now, like, if my husband were to do that, I would just look at him, like, with the death glare, be like, don't ever do that again. He hasn't, but, like...
Yep.
No, I don't care if it's playful or not. I see it as, you do that, I'm about to punch you. Like,
that's valid.
Sibling rivalry. I do not hit people.
No, you don't. Of the two of us, I am way more likely to hit somebody than you are.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, no, but again, that's a difference thing.
It is.
But now we got Eddie Boy all crouched up and ready to pounce.
So Bella backs away from him, and Edward pounces too fast for her to see. She was airborne, and then crashes into the sofa. His arms formed a protective cage around her, and Bella... Sorry.
Oh, so he's like, I'm gonna fly tackle you, but, like, gently. Protect the head.
Grammar is awful. It's just me.
I think the writing is a little tricky. Yeah, don't worry.
It is. So his arms formed a protective cage around her, and Bella was gasping out, but barely jostled. Quote, he wasn't having that. He curled me into a ball against his chest, holding me more securely than iron chains. I glared at him in alarm, but he seemed well in control. His jaw relaxed as he grinned, his eyes bright only with humor. What were you saying? He growled playfully. That you are a very, very terrifying monster, I say, my sarcasm married a bit by my breathless voice.
Is this the right use of growled, Stephanie? Is it the right use?
He's trying to act like a predator, Connie.
Okay, this might be the right use.
It might be the right use.
For once. For once in a book, it's the right use.
Bella tried to free herself, and Edward just readjusted her to sit on his lap. Alice and Jasper were in the doorway. Bella blushed, but Edward seemed at ease. Laughing, Edward tells them to go ahead, come in. Alice didn't seem to find anything unusual, so she came in. But Jasper paused at the door, and he seemed shocked. Jasper stared at Edward's face. Alice announced suddenly, quote, it sounded like you were having Bella for lunch, and we came to see if you wanted to share.
I love Alice.
I do too. I really like Alice.
You know who she kind of reminds me of? Your sister-in-law.
Yeah. I can see that.
100%.
Yeah. I can see that. Bella stiffened, but Edward was grinning. Edward tells them, sorry, he doesn't think he has enough to spare. Jasper cuts in, smiling, and says that Alice says there's going to be a storm tonight, and Emmett wants to play ball and wonders if Edward wants to join. Edward's eyes seem to light up, but he hesitated. Alice chirps, of course he should bring Bella. Edward asks if she wants to go. Bella was unable to disappoint, quote, such a face, end quote. She says, sure, where are they going? Edward tells her that she will have to wait for the thunder to play, and she'll see why. Bella asks if she needs an umbrella. Edward, Alice, and Jasper laugh, but Jasper asks Alice if she needs one. Alice says no, the storm will hit over town and should be dry enough in the clearing. Alice bounded to the door and says to see if Carlisle will come. Jasper and Alice leave, closing the door behind them. Bella asks what they will be playing. Edward clarifies that she will be watching and they will be playing baseball. Bella rolls her eyes and asks, vampires like baseball? Quote, it's the American pastime, he said with a mockingly solemnity. Solemnity. Solemnity.
Solemnity? Solemnness? Is he trying to solemnly say it's the American pastime?
Yeah.
Stephanie, sweetie, honey, not the adverb adjective? Adverb? Not the one you want to use there.
No. Solemnity. I don't know.
This is like the infinitesimal all over again.
It is. And I even wrote the
definition?
No, the
phonetics?
Yeah, the phonetics out, and I still can't. It's solemnity.
Solemnity.
But I can't put it together.
I've never used solemnity as a word.
No. But I quoted that just because that was the last sentence of the chapter.
We'll take it, but the odds of us ever using that again are infinitesimal.
I hate that word still to this day.
I am only using it in the context of these Twilight episodes.
Is it? You forgot the...
But would it be the odds are infinitesimal because it's not descriptive?
I don't know. You're the grammar person, so you tell me. But I'm saying in the book it was infinitesimally.
Infinitesimally small. Infinitesimally? I'm having a identity crisis over here. Oh God. I'm gonna have to Google this.
But anyway, so that was chapters 15 and 16. So we learned a lot about the history of how Carlisle came to be and how he stumbled upon Edward. There's a lot more that we still learn about the Cullens. Yeah, any thoughts about this chapter?
I gotta circle back to what the hell was that with the... I'm gonna take the tear and I'm gonna eat it.
Oh, no, why are we going back to that? No.
I can't unhear that. I blocked that thing for 10 plus years and it's back and it's not going. What?
I'd say I'm sorry, but also you're the one making me read this, so I'm not sorry.
You're not, don't be sorry. I'm just like, there's been a few things in the book that are just rattling around in my noggin. The whole how with the hand, the back of the hand thing to the face.
Yeah, why would you do that? I'm not gonna come up to you and just be like, "Let me touch your face," but with the back of my hand.
No. And now we got this tear thing.
He just wanted to taste Connie. He wanted to know how she tastes.
Oh, this is real PG. Yeah, sure.
That's where my brain went. And I'm sure I know I am not the only one.
You're not the only one. We're probably going to have to cut this next part.
Uh-oh.
What other liquids does he want out of her?
A lot more.
Is he a golden shower boy?
Ugh, no.
I said we'd probably have to cut it.
We're gonna have to cut that. Oh gosh. I mean, we could leave it in.
We can leave it in.
Technically, we didn't say anything bad.
We didn't. I asked a question. Questions are not inherently bad. It's the answers. Oh.
On that note, anything else about the chapters that you would like to talk about? You're just so caught up with the...
It's a pretty big hang up.
All right. So the biggest thing is that they are getting ready for this big baseball game.
Oh, yes. The baseball game is pivotal. Pivotal?
Yeah, it's pivotal.
It is pivotal. Also, I don't know if you know it yet, but when Carlisle's story is being told, that whole portrait of him with those
His
three
friends,
gods. Yeah, so those are the Volturi. And you will want to remember them. They come up.
That's why I wrote their names down. I was like, I am sure they're not just throwing out names to throw out names. They're actually like...
You'll want to remember them.
Yeah. Which is why I wrote them down. I'm like, they gotta... Are they the ones that live in Vancouver? Somewhere up north?
No, that's a different... Those are...
You don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't tell me.
I shouldn't tell you.
That has been my only thought so far, because I know there's another group Carlisle has said maybe in future chapters.
I don't think it's pivotal to anything. But there's a group, another coven up in that Vancouver, and actually maybe they're Alaska, but they are vegetarians as well. Mm-hmm. And that's actually where Edward went when he was in school for a couple of days after he first met Bella.
I know. We learn.
You learn.
We learn. I don't know which chapter, but we learn. Yeah, so sorry, we're kind of hinting towards future because I'm excited to talk about the next ones. So
okay, then I'll husha.
Yeah, I guess we can call it on this one then.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think about these two chapters in the comments below. Let us know what you're excited to hear. Connie will screen all of them. So
I will screen the comments so she won't be spoiled.
Yeah, so you guys can throw as many spoilers out as you want. I promise I will not look at them. But you can follow us, or you can find us on all of our social medias. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Chaos Chronicles Podcast, and that's Chronicles with an S.
We would very much appreciate a like, subscribe, and follow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will see you maybe next Wednesday for our Jeremy Stanky and Jasmine Richardson cases. Otherwise, we will see you next week for the next chapter.
Yeah.
All right.
Adios.
Bye.
What the fuck is with the tear? I'm not getting over that.
It was very strange.
He would sniff her tampons.
I haven't hit stop yet.